Welcome back to the Sens Spotlight podcast, brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. And before we get started, bet the beauties with Betway and scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and download the app. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Betway is an official sponsor of your Ottawa Senators. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show. That really helps us out. And hit that hype button on YouTube. And today we are joined by TSN's Jamie McLennan, or as everyone knows, Noodles, to talk about some Sens hockey and some goaltending. So I think you guys will really enjoy it. So hit it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Send Spotlight.
Here's Alfredson versus Speed. Gets a shot away. Score! Daniel Alfredson ends the game in overtime and sends the Ottawa Senators to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in franchise history.
The sickest Ottawa Senators podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And we are joined by Jamie McLennan of TSN. Thanks so much for taking the time and doing this. What's it been like just following this NHL season? It feels like it's one of the crazier, not just in Ottawa, but all around the league.
I was going to use the word chaos because I don't know. Like usually at the starting of every season, you go, okay, this team looks good on paper. This is going to happen. And you forget the scheduling comes in because everything's condensed. So now all of a sudden you have to factor in injuries and inconsistencies. And there are teams where have completely surprised me in a positive way and a negative way where you're like, I did not see that coming. The only one where I started the season saying they're going to bottom out and they want to was the Pittsburgh Penguins. And they've done the exact opposite where they've had a great season. Even with Sid's injury at the Olympics coming back, they found a way to keep afloat. Gino's been injured. They had the trades. I think Kyle Dubas done a great job bringing in players, managing draft picks, all of that type of stuff. But that's the biggest surprise-ish type of thing for me. And then, you and what end of the spectrum? I live in Toronto. I did not see that one coming, but injuries happen. Inconsistencies, and then it just drops off a cliff. And then same thing with the Florida Panthers. I think you look at Florida and you're like, okay, I talked to somebody down there when we were in Florida calling that game, and they knew they had a bad omen on their hands day one when Barkov blows his knee out in practice number 1. So they're like, okay, this just might be the hockey gods saying it's not going to be your year. But the crazy part about that is, I'll go a step further, and the word chaos or craziness. Florida is the game that they played against the Sens the other day. They were missing 9 regulars. Okay, all 9 of those regulars outside. I mean, Bobrovsky, if he comes back and they sign him, will be healthy and will be able to come back. I think Florida just has a quick reset, and they're right back as a cup contender, and they might get a top. Could you imagine if they won the lottery? Like,
oh my God,
and got McKenna or got, a top 5 pick. And, there's a lot of potential studs in the draft this year. So that's something that could happen for Florida. So lots of crazy stories to answer your question. Some good, some bad, but this year's been chaos, and it's going to go down. And I think if you look at this, the league has got to be somewhere very happy going. There's fan bases that are going to be chewing their nails off on the last night of the season. And I would argue Ottawa is going to be one of them. And of course, it's going to be against the Toronto Maple Leafs who aren't playing for anything. So, the Maple Leafs are going to try and play spoiler. Now, if you're the Sens, you can get ahead of that. And maybe that last game doesn't mean anything. But knowing what we know of what's happened with Ottawa and the rest of the league and that, it's probably going to come down to that last game.
It's funny just you saying that. Travis Green all years, I don't think I've ever seen as much parity in the league this year. And you look at the West and there's 4 or 5 teams battling for that final spot. In the East, it's the same with a couple more spots, but it just chaos, as you said, ensuing. With the Senators, there's been a lot this year just covering the team. Obviously you're, covering the team as well. Just bigger picture, what do you make of everything that's transpired with this team this season?
Well, you make the playoffs last year. So immediately, I think in your mind, you just think, okay, that's where we start this season, and we just build on to become a cup contender, all of that. You forget that you've got to play 82 games, and you forget that not everybody's going to be their best. Condensed schedule. Linus Ullmark and his, struggles off the ice, well documented. So I'm always careful how to term it. That's the thing. You're trying to be respectful, but
Yeah.
just call them struggles. So, and then, you're thinking, okay, even if Linus is struggling, well, Marilainen's going to, step in because he was 8-3 last year and played very, very well with 3 shutouts. And, you realize he's just a kid. And when you're the guy, it's a lot different when you have a safety blanket sitting on the bench as opposed to you're the guy and we have nobody else. And I still think he's a very good goaltender, but I also think that he needs growth and he needs time. But you look at it, when I looked at this Sens season, I expected another step from everybody, especially Dylan Cousins coming in to see, and you're hearing how great a shape he's in. And you're like, okay, this guy's going to, I thought Zetterlund, who's been a 25, 26 goal scorer, I'm like, that guy is going to be there. I feel like he's the type of guy. And it just, for whatever reason, some guys excel and some guys haven't had their best season. And then you throw in a condensed schedule, you throw in the goaltending, you throw in the injuries, you throw in, it just seems like there's every 2 weeks, there's a storyline that is distracting outside of them just playing hockey. But that being said, they lose to Minnesota and like, okay, where are we at? You got Carolina coming in. And that was a massive win yesterday. I thought they were fantastic. They were the better team. They worked harder. They were faster. They got the goaltending. They got, special teams were a difference maker. So I look at it. There's so many things. Keep in mind, and I know I'm kind of going all over the place as it comes to my mind.
Yeah.
This is a team that's been 30th in penalty kill too, like most of the season. So it's not without their challenges, but I still think, and I've said this and I've been consistent with this, I've always felt that they were the best team outside the playoff picture in the league. And now they're in that playoff picture, but now they got to continue to push ahead. I just don't see, Philly, these teams are hanging around. Washington's hanging around. Columbus is hanging around, right? So it's going to be a challenge. But the Sens, it's been a rocky road for them. But I'm a guy who votes. If the Sens make the playoffs, Travis Green is probably going to be my coach of the year. I think he's done an awesome job. And I know this is the emotion of Sens Twitter. I see fire this guy. This guy doesn't know what he's doing to like, this guy is amazing. And that's just the emotions, right? We live it. But he's been awesome. This team has an identity. And when they play to it, they're very tough to play against. And that's coaching. And they've done a really good job.
What do you think? Like how, like just you've mentioned, like there has been so much around the team. Like as a coach, like how much harder does that make your job to get everyone kind of going in the same direction? And there's a famous video of him from like right when they started going on that heater saying, like block out the outside noise. It's just us. Like, what can you just say about that type of coaching that isn't just X's and O's, but getting the team to go in the same direction?
I think the hardest thing for today's athlete, and I'm not one, I was an athlete, 17 years ago or whatever it's been a minute, but social media is now part of people's lives. The instantaneous information that we receive, as opposed to if I had an off night when I played, I would see it on the news that night. I'd read about it in the paper the next day. It wasn't trending on Twitter. People weren't weighing in instantaneously. Like the life has changed. I think Travis has done a very good job. And again, and his staff, not just Travis, but the staff, including Steve Staios, Dave Poulin, the whole group, have done a good job of trying to keep the group focused and understanding like, hey, look forward, don't be looking back and dwell. And some of the noise has been self-inflicted too. That's the other part that, if you're Brady and you've got a podcast, you're going to talk about stuff. If you're Linus and you've had, now self-inflicted is the wrong word with Linus, but he's had struggles. And the problem is, okay, so Linus was going through some struggles and then stuff online starts and you're like, do you want to respond? Do you not want to respond? Like everybody had their opinion as to how they should have handled that. I don't think there's a perfect science into handling the pressures that come with an athlete today, especially when they're going through some struggles. But he had to sit down with Claire. I think he's done a good job of managing what's in front of him. I know it's a struggle every day. I don't think it's a scenario where, he just is going to beat something. This isn't, it's going to be a battle for him in his career. But I like the fact that he went at it head on, and I respect that. So, outside of what they've had to deal with and the white noise and that, I think they've done a good job of kind of keeping the eye on the ball. And just when you think they're out, or just when you think, okay, this is what's going to do it for them, good or bad, they find a way to surprise me in a good way. And I think that speaks to the character in the room. Tomorrow, our opening, my thought process is talk about that game against Carolina, and who was it that delivered? It was their leaders. Like you want to talk about things being noisy, and it's Linus playing back to back. It's Jake Sanderson, delivering a great performance, coming back after injury. It's Timmy going end to end and having one of the goals of the year. It's Brady being engaged, and yes, Ridley makes the great play on his second goal, but it's Brady being engaged and delivering big goals at the right time. So it's, to me, their leadership group has found a way through lots of chaos, through lots of ups and downs, to deliver at the most important time, and they need to continue that on.
And obviously, you were in the NHL for a long time. I'm curious, they have had all this adversity, some self-inflicted, some out of their control, some just not playing well, not getting saves early in the year. I always feel like if you've gone through all those battles to get into the playoffs, you're so battle tested that you're in a better space than maybe like a Carolina or Tampa Bay or other teams that they could play. Like, how much do you think that will help them if they get in to have gone through so much?
So I was 30 minutes ago on the phone with an AGM in the NHL, and he was asking about Ottawa, and people ask me, kind of me being around the team, what do you think of that? And I said, well, what do you make of it? And he said, I think they're dangerous. He just said, I think if that team makes the playoffs, they can make a lot of noise because the way they're constructed. I like the Fogle trade. I think the Fogle trade fell perfectly to what they needed. They needed a penalty killer. They needed speed. They needed a guy who can play a natural left wing on the third line and, fourth line up and down, like you name it. He's a guy. If they could knock on wood, stay healthy, not lose a Sanderson, if they can get, I don't think Shabbat is an option right now, but you never know. But if you could stay somewhat healthy and have everybody feeling good about their game, I think they're a dangerous team. And I look at it, you talk about the struggle to get to the playoffs. They've been playing playoff hockey and playoff mentality for quite a long time. So there's no getting there and going, okay, now we need to flick the switch. The switch has already been flicked. These guys are, so there will be a sense of normalcy. It's like, oh, we need to raise our level. We can do that. We've been doing it for months. So yes, it comes back to a team that struggles to get into the playoffs might be a dangerous one because they've been doing it for so long. So there's no artificial excitement you need to build. Oh, hey, it's the playoffs. Now I can block a shot. Now I can do it. We see these guys selling out every night to do it. So I think of was it the 2012 LA Kings?
Yeah, 8th seed. Yep.
They were the 8th seed, and that was Daryl Sutter came in, and they went on a run that just destroyed everybody. And it took them, they went through some adversity, and then they just mowed everybody down. And I'm not going to compare the two. I'm just saying, like, there is some similarities to a team that has to scratch and claw to get the 8th spot, as opposed to somebody who coasts in and is resting people and going, okay, let's just get through these last 3 games because really we're playing, next Friday for keeps. They're going to have to play for keeps right to the end of the season.
Just with that, like, and obviously Brady's kind of been a talk of the town for multitude of reasons, and I feel like his plays kind of wane here and there. I thought last night he was one of the best games of the season. When they were out, it seemed like they were out of a playoff spot against the Islanders a couple of weeks ago. He had that crazy game where he fought. What have you just thought of his game on the ice? And it seems like, I don't know what you think, but I feel like the playoffs, when you can go 100%, you can check, like, you there's nothing left to kind of save your body for. I feel like that's going to be better for him as well.
Of course, because playoff hockey suits Brady because of his style of play, the physicality, finishing every check, playing for keeps, scrums, punching people in the face, getting punched in the face. When he's involved emotionally, that's when he's at his best. So you're right, on a Tuesday night in, January, are you gonna, do you really want to do that? And the other thing, I mean, we pointed out in the broadcast, it was a calendar year. That night he fought, it was a calendar year for him fighting. It was a year previous. He had the thumb injury. It takes a long time to heal, to not only physically heal, but like, okay, do I have the confidence to drop my gloves, and am I going to be able to punch somebody and give it back? And that he's tough as nails, but you also have to manage your body to the point where you don't want to re-injure something where now you take yourself out of it. So, that game, for him to drop the gloves 2 seconds in, to make a statement, to fight and actually fight, not just, punching with the gloves on, like they were going at it. It was a great fight. And to me, that showed the confidence, like, okay, I can do it. I feel comfortable doing it again. I think he always wanted to, but you could tell there were times this season where something's going on, or Timmy gets hit or something, and he wants to be, and he's there, but he's not there. If it was right now, it'd be gloves off, garage sale. I'm in, not even thinking. Before, he had to think, okay, can I do this, or would I have to break? Would I have to be a lot smarter about my interactions in those areas where now I think it's all emotion, and he just goes and plays. So to look at him, the way he's able to play in these games that are critical, that's the best Brady Tkachuk. That's the best version we see of him. And it's nights for 8 shots on goal, 7 hits. He's good in the face-off dot because he bullies his way through. Like, it's just, he's all over the score sheet. He may not score that night, but you're like, oh, okay, this guy, every time. For me as a broadcaster, I can tell when somebody's into the game because you've said their name, or you've heard, Kenzie or Gord, whoever I'm working with that particular night, say their name. But there's times halfway through the game where I'll hear somebody's name, and I'll go on my talk back to Sam Cicerello and make a joke and go, it's the first time I've heard that guy's name, where it's been quiet. Rare, it's rare, but like, you can tell on any given night who's going, just based on kind of who's around the puck and who's basically being talked about a lot. And Brady, he's right in the middle of it, and you can tell his name. I'll say, well, there's Tkachuk in a scrum, or here's Brady with a pass, or Brady with a hard play to the net. And all of a sudden you look at his stat line, and it's like, as I mentioned.
Obviously, you played in the league. You were in locker rooms. What do you think it would have been like for you to have a player on your team have a podcast? Like, and what do you think of that? Because I'm pro it. I'll put that out. I like that he does it. I think it's great for the game. But I also think there's going to be stuff like what happened a couple days ago, and what Keith said and everything that will, hit his wavelengths as well.
It is the new world. So I try to remove myself being an old curmudgeon and going like, don't, hey, this is what's said in the room. You got to do this, and you got to live your life a certain way. Just because I live my life a certain way doesn't mean that they have to, or whatever. I'm all for it too. But I also feel that there's a responsibility of a fine line. And I'll give you an example. Say what you want, but Brady had I think the podcast was taped on Sunday. I think it was, like, I'm trying to remember that.
Sunday or Monday. It was
Sunday or Monday, right? And then they played Tuesday. They had the stinker. Thursday, they're back in Ottawa. It starts to have a little bit of a wildfire. The podcast gets released, and that Brady doesn't talk that morning. So I'm going, okay, hold on. Like, again, he talks every day, but my thing is like, if you are going to talk, and if you are going to, put yourself out there, that you can't pick and choose. There has to be a line where it's like, okay, this is what is being said. This is what was said on your show. You put it out there. Nobody dragged you. It wasn't a secret recording. So, those types of things have to be talked about. And I subscribe to this mantra. I think you disarm people with the truth. So the minute, and I did that near the end of my career. I finally, the light went on. It's like, as a goalie, you allow a bad goal. Yeah, and go, well, the sun was in my eyes. And, like you go, I blew it. And as a media person, it's refreshing because you're like, and as a fan, you're like, okay, yeah, you did. So, but like I learned from Drew McGinley and players that I played with who were, yeah, it's not going well. I haven't scored in 8 games, but boy, I can't wait till I score in that 9th game. Like they had this confidence about them. Brady has a confidence about him. Matthew certainly does. That Tkachuk family. I'm biased because I really like them. Like I know Walt. I've known them from St. Louis for 100 years. I think they're good for the game. I really do. And I think the podcast is good. But I think there's a responsibility, and it's a fine line. Being the captain of a Canadian team, I get that. Being a leader, having a podcast, keep in mind his brothers won back-to-back Stanley Cups. His dad, I think, is a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. They're a hockey family, and I want to hear from them, just like I want to hear from the Kelsey brothers, which is, I think, they're under the same umbrella. And I think about it. The Kelsey brothers they had a podcast that week when they were playing each other in the Super Bowl. And I remember thinking, like, how weird is that? How hard? Because Jason's going to try and kill, his brother or whatever. I think they might not have been on the field at the same time. But point being is, it's like they have a job to do, but they're doing this. So I welcome it, but I think it's just, again, I have to recondition my mind because it just wasn't like that when I played. And I'll go even one step further. I've got a little bit extra time if you want, but like I'll go a little step further. Around when I was playing, I never, Instagram wasn't around, social media wasn't around. So if I had a girlfriend at the time, she wasn't at the game 30 minutes before taking, I wasn't in the corner in the glass taking a picture with her. You see kids now, they have their families and that, like, warm up is more like the NBA now. They visit and stuff. Back then, when I was playing, that was just off limits. Like I had best friends that played on the other team. I would say to them, like, I'll talk to you after the game. That's it. We'll see you. Like it was just a different time. I don't know. It's, my time wasn't right. This time isn't right or wrong. It's just what it is. So my point being is I have to look at everything with the lens of 2026, not of 2004 when I played, and Daryl Sutter wouldn't want that. And, geez, like John Tortorella would look at this. It's a different world. And I think you have to respect it, but it doesn't, when I lay my opinion on it, I'm trying to look at it through the lens of 2026 and going, how, this is today's athlete. This is today's world. So understand that. And so it's a long answer to your podcast question. It was just different when I played, but I don't frown on it. I just think there's an adjustment there. And I think players just have to accept it. And if you don't like what's being said, I think if Brady, I was always a teammate. If I didn't like what somebody did or said, you talk to them about it. And they're your brothers. So like your family, my kids right now are at home here. I can hear them arguing in the background, but they love each other, right? Your family is, hold on, this kid's knocking. What do you want? Get out of here. This kid's knocking at the door. But point being is like, you have 25 brothers in your room. You're going to argue, you're going to fight, you're going to have disagreements, but you're a family. And I think that's where the guys look at it and go, I'm fine with it. But, things get said that are misconstrued, because I think Brady clarified it and said that wasn't what was being talked about. But he goes, I can't control how people disassemble the comments. But he's like, that certainly wasn't the thought process behind it.
Yeah. And honestly, on that, people took the goaltending part out of it. I thought Keith talking about ice time and Matthew, that for me was more, whoa. Like if I'm Travis Green, I feel what.
And Greeny, I thought Greeny handled it perfectly. It's like 18 minutes. I'm happy with it. But like Greeny gets it too. Like Greeny's doing what's best for his team. And if he thinks Brady at 18 minutes makes him, the most valuable and the best version of himself, Travis isn't going to go, geez, I need to get it to 20 because Keith says so. It's like, hey, we're I'm trying to do what's best for my team. And I give Travis Green the benefit of the doubt because I think he's a hell of a coach. So to me, I thought Travis handled it perfectly. And as a player, if Brady wants to play more, good, because he's a competitive guy. Probably wants to play 25 minutes a night. But it's the coach's job to put guys out there to what he feels is best on that particular night. So I didn't have a problem with it at all.
No, not at all. When you were talking about kind of the new age of kind of the NHL, I thought of Allmark specifically with everything. And, it's a touchy subject, and we want to, kind of make sure that, we go at it in that way. But I'm curious from your perspective as a former goaltender, obviously, not recently, but I guess for you, like, how much did your mental space, like how you're feeling, kind of translate into how you played? Did that like, obviously you're a backup, so it was a bit different than Allmark, but what was that like for you, and how does that kind of translate into how you look at kind of what Allmark's dealing with?
The one thing I can look at and actually compare when it comes to Linus is I was a very high anxiety goaltender. So I don't know if that's the type of struggles Linus has, but I was a guy that was very nervous to play. I don't look at Linus as a guy who's nervous to play, but I look at him as a very cerebral person. So I think Linus probably gets into his own head. Again, I'm guessing, I'm not, and thinks the game. I was a guy who would sometimes be exhausted by the time the game came around because I thought I had played it a million times in my head before it came. And I can see, I've got a lot of friends who are goalie coaches now in the league who are former NHL goaltenders. High anxiety guys can spot high anxiety guys. And I don't think Linus is a high anxiety guy. I think he has struggles, and that's a different thing. But when it comes to goaltending, and this is where I'm getting to, goaltending is a lot. They say it's 90% mental, 10% physical. I don't know what that actual formula is, but the mental part is a massive part about it. You have to be clear-minded to focus and find a puck. You've got to read plays instantaneously. You need to see what's coming at you. And that's on top of having the legs and the flexibility and explosiveness and everything. So your body has to be taken care of, but your mind has to be clear to read what's coming at you and understand how quickly things happen. Everything's positioning. A lot of times, I always say this, if you think in the net, you're in big trouble, because the minute you think, oh, I got to do this, it's gone. The game is too fast. So when I look at it, regardless if I backed up or started, I could understand what it took to be a starter, what it took to play on any given night as a goaltender. And a lot of it is your preparation, your pre-scouting, where do you see yourself on certain shots towards the ice, and your reads. Again, play comes at you 3-on-2. What are the options coming at you? Is that guy on the flank a right shot or a left shot? Do I have to push farther to get across? These are all things that have to be computed in real time. And if you are clouded mentally, it's a struggle. And you can still do it, but it might not be clean. And eventually that catches up to you. So I look at it, there's no way to quantify it. I think it's the best thing is to take care of yourself. I think rest is a big part. So again, if you in a back-to-back situation, physically, it's very hard to play. Everything's in tight, you're moving, but mentally to call on it, I got to do it on a Saturday and then a Sunday, and two different teams, two different systems, two different approaches. It's a lot harder than I think. And I'll give you a quick example. I remember talking to Roberto Luongo about it right at the end of his career. Louis and I are still very good friends. He played back-to-back. His backup, I think, was sick or hurt, and he played back-to-back. And I talked to him the next day. I said, how was that? And he said, this is a guy who played 76 games in a season or 75. He could do it and played back-to-back all the time. But he said, the game is so fast now. Everything is in tight. So physically moving side to side, up, down, over, and then how the game is progressed as far as the speed of it, it was really tough for him to do consistently. So I understand that. I think that's why the analytics comes in to playing guys back to back, because it's almost the physical drop off is huge. Special guys can do it. I always joke, I'll take 80% of Mika Kiprasov than 100% of Jamie McLennan every day. But those guys can do it. Hellebuck can do it. In a vacuum. Ullmark did it yesterday. Like you can do it but you can't do it consistently. It's really tough. So managing workload is not only good for the body, it's good for the mind to make sure that you're sharp the next time out. So that's what I view with Linus. It's a struggle, but he can do it, but it's about prep and taking care of yourself.
And you're the goaltender expert. And since he's come back from, his mental health struggles, there's been a couple wobbles, like that game in Florida probably didn't like the way it started. A game against Montreal, he gave up a bad goal kind of late in the game. But he has been much better than what he was before. What are you seeing from your vantage point as a goaltender in the way he seems to be playing better? I find his glove hand's been a bit more effective and noticeable as well.
I think the positioning's the biggest thing. He's giving himself a chance to make the saves. So when you look at, I'll give you an example, like post integration, like bad angle shots. He's such a big goaltender. He slides in, covers it with his shoulder. He'll slide his head over. Like everything looks very clean. And when a goaltender's not on their game, it looks messy. Like Ray Ferraro has a great saying, "Is unmade bed." It goes look like an unmade bed in there. It's just kind of everywhere. When Linus is on his game, he doesn't look scrambly. You could still scramble for a puck. I'm not, but I'm saying consistently, you make the same saves, kind of this, if it's a shot from the point and there's maybe a little bit of traffic, you come out and you make your save. Where I look at goaltenders that are erratic, they never make the same save twice. It just and you can make the save twice, but you're like, I probably would have done this, probably would have done that. His game looks a lot more consistent now. He may give up goals. Yeah, Florida was they were all out to lunch. So be it. But like, you're going to give up goals. It's how you recover. It's how you are within your limitations. That first goal they gave up yesterday, like it comes between Zub's legs. It goes to Stankoven and Amadio's late on it. It's a power play goal. He's in position and he slides his right pad, but he's a little bit late on the play, but that's not his fault. From a systematic standpoint, when I'm looking at him, he looks solid. It's like, okay, you're going to give up a goal. But the key is to not give up a next shot or have your game sag or play a little bit deeper because you just have back of my heels here. It's like I'm going to play the same way. That's the sign of a goaltender that's confident in their ability. Linus has had that since he's come back from his mental struggles. And they need to continue that on here if they're going to make the playoffs because they do need him. He's a great goaltender, and they need him to just be good. He doesn't have to be great. They just need, with their system and the way they play, and if they give up 24 or less shots in a night and maybe 9 scoring chances, you got to make the saves you should, and maybe a couple that you shouldn't. I say that all the time on the broadcast, but it's true. Just give him a chance, and the team will know this guy in there's got our back. We've got his back. So he's capable of doing it, and I've seen a lot more stability in his game.
I have one question because I've been asking a couple guys, goaltenders like Levy, and I asked Ullmark about this with the new geo-locating tracking stuff, and them saying, you look up at the scoreboard and you thought you made 12 saves and it says you have 7 or 8 and your confidence kind of went. Like, how much do you think that's affecting goaltenders? And obviously the stats have gone down, like everyone's save percentage has dropped just because people aren't shooting as much or not being tracked as a shot as much as it was before. But how do you think it affects goaltenders' confidence?
It does when you see, again, I'll give an example. When people who think goaltending should be 925 save percentage, when really the league average is 895 right now, right? So it's almost goes back to my era where 9 out of 10 was the good ones and everybody else was 88.5 or 89%. The geo tracking, it's interesting because I'll give you an example. And I talked to some analytics guys early on, Rob Volman and Chris Snow. I flew out to meet, like I wanted to understand analytics. So I went and met with these guys to kind of dig in on it. And I remember they had a thing called rink effects. I was like, oh, okay, describe that. And, oh, well, the Rangers, they're very generous at MSG. And I'm like, oh, well, that really helps Henrik Lundqvist be at 928, right? And then, well, what's a stingy rink? Well, LA. Oh, it's amazing that Jonathan Quick's at 905. And I love Quickie. And I talked to Billy Ranford, his goalie coach, about it. And I said, "Are they bad with shots here?" He goes, "Jamie, he misses 5 to 8 shots a game because of where their position, where." And I said, if you're Jonathan Quick, I'll give you an example. If you're Jonathan Quick and they have 41 home games and you play 35 of them because you're the starter, and that's what Quickie did. He was playing 68 games back then, or 65. If he's playing all the home games or most of them, let's just say you play 30 of them and you're missing 3 to 5 shots. That's 150 shots in your save percentage. Conversely, a guy who's in a very generous building, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, New York Rangers, you look at the save percentage of some of those goaltenders, and you're like, it's a little inflated. So now with the geo tracking, it brings everybody back to, hey, you're getting a shot, or if it's going 2 feet wide and you catch that puck, in your mind, that's a shot on goal. And in their mind, that's not a shot on goal, that's missing the net. So it brings everybody back to the same level, and you don't have to deal with the rink effects of this rink being. Because believe me, as a goalie coach in Calgary, I would fight with those guys. Because
Really?
I would chart every shot. And one time, I'll give you an example. I'm trying to remember his name. Mason Raymond.
Yep.
Takes a slap shot from center ice. Kiprusoff catches it, puts it down, and plays it. They don't give him a shot on goal. And after the period, I went to the guy and I said, "You're missing a couple shots." But I said, "Mason Raymond slap shot from center ice. Here's the shot location, whatever." He goes, "Oh, he wasn't trying to score." I go, "What do you mean?" I go, "How do you know? You're not in his mind. What are you talking about?" "Oh, I was just shooting it in from center ice. That's not a shot on goal." I go, "If Kipper falls down and it goes in the net," I go, "is that a shot on goal?" "Yeah, but that wasn't the case." So you would argue with them, and I'm saying, but you need to take the human emotion out of it. And I swear on my life, about 2 months later, Mason Raymond, same player, dumped it in as he was going to the bench. He dumped it in, and Kipper wasn't paying attention, and it went over his shoulder in the net. And so, like, the same player 2 months later takes a shot, and Kipper's out to lunch that night. And I ran down to the guy and I said, "Well, don't count that as a goal or a shot on goal," because I said he wasn't trying to score there. And he laughed about it, but like, that's the type of stuff that you're taking it. So as a goaltender now, it is frustrating, but you have to understand that it's consistent in every building now. It's not, hey, we're going in here and it's generous here, and this building, I know, because I've witnessed it. I played for the Rangers. I know there's a little bit generous there. I played against LA. I know they're not as, and you're literally going, "I just made 3 saves and I got 1 up there." And you're like, "What's going on?" So goalies are well aware of it. Well aware. It's frustrating, but there is a consistency to it now.
Do you think, like, they haven't been doing this as much recently, but just at the beginning of the season, the Sens were so good at suppressing shots, not just, which ones, were tallied, but not feeling that save? Do you think that was kind of affecting
Sure.
Like, if you don't just have like a puck hit you in, first minute of the game and okay, made a save, like, does that have a real effect on goaltenders?
It does, because what's happening is, if say you're giving up 20 shots, but you're still giving up 9 quality high danger chances. In those 9 chances are good shots, and you're not getting any routine ones to just let you feel the puck. So you're going 8 minutes without a shot. You're watching the other team's goalies make saves in that, and the puck bounces over Jordan Spence's stick, and we got a 2-on-1, and you got to make a save, and you get scored on that play, which is a great, pass across or something. But the shots are 12-4, and you're looking at it going, maybe the scoring chances are 4-4, but there's been more routine saves on the other side. It does wear on you. But again, over time, and I think the consistency of it, you have to understand that it's better to be facing 20 or less shots and having an opportunity to win, because your team is blocking, team is pushing everything to the outside. They are doing a good job. I'll take it, but still, it is that mental struggle, the game within the game, where it's like, okay, I haven't had a routine shot yet, and I'm going to have a high quality chance because we just took a penalty. So It's
It's
kind of the chicken or the egg, but it is a battle for sure.
for sure. Just last question, and thanks again for doing this, especially kind of on Easter as well. But if you were the commissioner for one day, what rule would you change, or what would you change about the NHL?
Uh, so there's a couple things I'd look at. I think there's an adaptation to instant replay. So maybe you put a clock on it and go, if you can't sort it out in 3 minutes, then you go with the call on the ice. Because I think
Hmm.
fans are now losing that. Like, you get these 8-minute reviews and it's, it's a millimeter offside or not. And you're like, God, just make the call either way. And I get it. Secondly, I'd like to, and again, this is no shot, but I have friends at player safety. I would be a lot stiffer, but I would warn the players day one. And I'm going to preface this by saying I would not be a good police officer because I would pull people over for going too slow or driving like an idiot in a parking lot. And, like to me, so I would look at it. I would say everything's going to be stiffer, but I'm warning you right
Hmm.
now, don't be stupid because what you think is going to be 1 is going to be 3. What you think is 3 is going to be 6. And I would say embellishment, you embarrass the ref and the league. It's not a $2,000 or $5,000 fine. It's a game. And then you do it again. It's like, to me, it sends a message. And I've always had this belief that people act differently if you're driving down the highway, you're driving down what, 416, 417, and there's a cop sitting at the road. What's your natural reaction? It's like,
You
hey, slow down, right? Or if you know that that presence is there, you're going to act differently. So to me, I feel like if I was commissioner for a day, and it's a hypocritical thing to say because these owners, they want. When it happens to their player, they're like, how the hell is that not 5 games or whatever? When their player does it, it's like, hey, 5 games is too much. It's just a love tap, or it's just. So I would say to everybody, understand it's going to have a ripple effect on everybody. So an owner that's pushing for it, your player might be first in line to get whacked. And it might be a star player. It might be, Austin Matthews cross-checked Rasmus Dahlin in the neck. He got 4 games for that. That might be 8 because you want to protect Austin Matthews because Radko Gudas got 5 games and people in Toronto disagree with the 5 games. They think it should have been heavier. So I think if you had a mantra to be a little bit stiffer in certain areas from day one, players might curb their thought process if they're going to, I know the emotions get out there, but if something stupid happens, they know that it's coming.
Hmm.
So those would be the 2 things I would look at. And then probably a third one would be goalie interference. Do
you know what that is?
I think I have a good idea, but the problem is you can make a case. There's like the one against Pittsburgh. Stuart
Yeah.
Skinner gets a skate, sort of stick. I can't remember who skated through a stick. They challenged it the other day and they kept it a goal. And I could understand why Pittsburgh challenged it. And they were pissed that they had lost 8 in a row at goaltender challenges. But that one, I wouldn't have challenged it. Skinner was in his position. His stick was there. A skate hits his stick, opens him up. He still makes the save. But it's just like, okay, to me, it's got to be an egregious, you get run into, knocked over, the incidental little things. I would still think. I think I have a good idea of it, but I've been probably wrong on 50% of my broadcast calls going, I think that's not going to be. And of course it is.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but that, unless you change it to the IIHF rule where it's touch the goalie, blow the whistle, face off outside, you're going to have interpretation. And I think
Yeah.
that's a dangerous one because I don't worry about it on a Tuesday night in November. I worry about it in May and it costs a team a playoff win or a playoff goal or something like that. That's what I worry about. I think the people at the league office do a great job. I'm biased towards them because I know a lot of those guys in the war room and I think they do a great job, but it's subject to opinion. And you and I could watch the same play and you could say one thing and I'd say the other. And it's okay. It's opinion based. It's not, it's not puck over the glass. That's a cut and dry, right? So it's a tough job and I wouldn't want to do it, but we talk about it ad nauseum every day.
Yeah, it was interesting. James Reimer, I forget which game it was in the last 2 weeks. He got hit, went down. He got hit in the head. I think he got a puck, a stick to the mask, and he got up immediately as soon as he could, because he's like, I don't know if it'll be called goalie interference, but I'm sure as hell not giving up this goal if I can stop it. Right? And it's just an interesting dynamic for goaltenders now that they all want it to be goalie interference, but they don't trust that it is.
Yeah, and it's fair. I think what you have to do as an athlete is just do what James did. Fight through everything. And if it ends up being a goal, maybe you get the luck. I think, when you look at it, Mike King does a good job with the Senators. But on any given night, you have no idea how it's going to unfold.
No idea. But I really appreciate you, Jamie, for taking the time and doing this. A lot of goaltender talk, which I always love coming from you. And thanks again for taking the time and doing this.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Sens Spotlight on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.